Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Lost. I am Shad, he is Razor, and we don't actually often introduce ourselves, come to think of it, as anything apart from our actual names.
That's true.
Who are these people? What do they want? I was listening to a Silent Hill podcast the other day, and every single episode starts with them introducing who they are, and what they do, and what their relation to the series is, but for the purposes of this, I suppose you could just categorize us both as very long-standing fans of the Mortal Kombat series, specifically its story.
Yeah, we're a couple of old men from the long ago, from the before time. And we like things the way they were. And sometimes we get grumpy about it.
But not always. I like to think that we're fair and objective in our commentary most of the time.
I try to be. We've been accused of otherwise, but I don't think those complaints hold water. I think we're reasonable men. We're just a
bit set in our ways.
The thing is, people on the YouTubes who have their own shows tend to be artificially cheerful and positive about everything, and the fact that we act like real human beings is a stark contrast to that throws people off. That's what I think.
A lot of my attitude towards video games in general now, and specifically the Mortal Kombat franchise, comes from having lived through what a lot of people might consider to be the golden years of its development into what it is today. To me, Mortal Kombat was always it wasn't never just a place where you just tore people limb from limb with bloody fatalities. That was sure a large part of the appeal. But it was a place of secrets, it was a place of one-on-one fighting in the arcades, and messing with the game, and unlocking people with ultimate combat codes. MK was about secrets to me.
Yeah, there was a fascination with mystery. There was a mystique about it that set it apart from other games, because there was always the rumors shared among the fan base, and you would sort of bond with people over that kind of thing.
It's actually a very special episode here for me tonight, at least. I don't know about you guys. We're going to be talking about someone who always has and still does mean a lot to me.
Me as well.
We're talking about the best character in the Mortal Kombat universe. We're talking about Darius. Nah, man, I'm shitting you.
A number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7, 2 number 45s, 1 with cheese, and a large soap.
Are you smoking yet?
Smoke. Oh, I've waited so fucking long to get here.
It's been a while, and we've certainly brought it up many times. It's like, oh, wait till we get to the smoke episode. We're going to talk about that. Well, we're here.
This is it. This is the night. I can't express the fucking joy I'm feeling right now, being able to sit here and finally talk about my favorite character. And he's my favorite character.
I know, he's your favorite character. He's one of my favorite characters.
You know what? He's so many people's favorite character. Why is this the best character in Mortal Kombat? Tell me.
It's an unusual confluence of elements. I think one of the things that first drew me to Smoke, and I've said this before, obviously Smoke existed in MK2, but for me, it was MK3 where I was like, that's the fucking guy. And it was the fact that he was a hidden character. He was the first hidden character you could play as.
Yep.
And you could see him on the select screen, like the question mark would flip over and you'd be like, who's that fucking robot? I want to play that fucking robot. How do I get that fucking robot?
For me, the infatuation, and yes, it is an infatuation. It's a multi-decade infatuation that continues to this day. It started in MK2. Secret characters were really fucking cool. Everyone knew about Reptile, and that was my first real arcade game when I was playing a lot. And every now and then, you'd get these little dudes that popped up before a fight, and they'd be throwing out hints, and you'd see Smoke in the Living Forest as well, peeking out from behind a tree along with Jade. And you know when something hurts you so bad you want more of it? Maybe he awoke some sort of masochism in me. The first time I fought that guy, he ripped my ass so hard, I was like, no, fuck you, that was not fair. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you and I'm gonna beat you, you cool-ass silver and black-wearing motherfucker. It was cool aesthetic too, you know? Like, silver and black, I love them. Like, when I was a kid, my favorite hockey team was the Los Angeles Kings, because that's what they wore. And here's this guy just running around at high speeds in Mortal Kombat 2, doing Scorpion better than Scorpion could hope to do, being faster than Reptile ever was. That's the thing. People think that, you know, all the secret characters ran really fast. No, Smoke sped up in addition to the fact that he was also fast. That guy could just go from 0 to 99 and throw you. As a matter of fact, recently, people like to do arcade hacks and whatnot these days, and I think, I'll have to go back and check for it, but I think that his actual run forward and throw thing is actually a special move the character can do. Or if it's not hardwired in the arcade, hackers made it possible.
There was always an interesting thing about the way Midway programmed boss characters, where if you ever, like, unlocked them in the game, like in the home versions, there would be codes and stuff. If you ever actually, like, tried them out, their special moves weren't special moves. They were coded to, like, normal buttons. They were just weird and funky. Like, these shortcuts to get the AI to do their stuff that you wouldn't have known about otherwise, that they don't play like normal characters. The funny thing is, all the way up to MK9, they were still doing it, because when you get to play as Goro in the challenge tower, he still works that way.
That's great. Now, it's old lore, but hey, history lesson time for anyone who might not know. Smoke's first appearance was as a secret character who could be fought in MK2 when you get to the portal stage in either a 1 or 2 player game. Now, in MK2, once you hit someone with an uppercut, on a counter usually, there's a chance that an image of MK sound guru Dan Forden will pop up into the screen from the lower right-hand corner and sing, "Toasty!" When this happens, holding down and hitting the start button, the first player that does it, will get taken to Goro's lair, where they will face the man, the myth, the legend, Smoke. Now, why did Dan sing Toasty? Let's let him explain.
Well, Toasty is, it wasn't, believe it or not, it wasn't my idea, but I totally went along with it. I think it's hilarious. It's one of those taunts that I used to taunt Ed when we were playing Super High Impact. You know, when the two football sides are coming to the line of scrimmage, I'd say, "Hi, I predict toast." Like, you're toast, right? And somehow that turned into, "I predict Toasty," and then it just became Toasty. And then someone else in the studio suggested, "You should put some of that weird stuff you say into the games." And we're like, "Nah, it's a bad idea." And we're like, maybe we'll do it. So Ed came up with, like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put your face in the game, and it's going to say Toasty." I'm like, "Okay." And so that's basically how it started.
So there you have it. The answer was football. Now, in addition to the actual fight, of course, you had to have hints as to how to fight him. So Smoke, along with Jade, would pop up during Mortal Kombat 2. And he said a bunch of stuff. And as we covered for Jade, here's the things he said. "Toasty, you can start finding me. Ermac who? You cannot defeat me. I am one of 3. Portal. I will meet you in Goro's lair. Mortal Kombat 1, and prove yourself."
Mortal Kombat 1.
Again, we covered that a little bit in the Jade Retro,
Right,
but that was bullshit.
The screen claiming when you unlock them that you've discovered a hidden warrior from the previous game.
Go on, Jimmy! Go pump more quarters into the MK1 arcade cabinet! You can do it! You can find him! We believe in you! Oh, good fucking lord. So, in the Deception biocard the guy's got, Ed talks about him a little bit. And he says that, like with Reptile, Jade and Smoke were pretty much his way of, like, wanting to just stuff more characters into the game as secrets.
Right.
As it was with Reptile.
The memory on those, the hardware, the arcade hardware, was limited, and the only way they could get more characters in was palette swapping. So they're like, "Hey, we can always have more colors of ninjas."
So they did.
Yeah.
And,
so they did.
Unlike Jade, who had to wait a little while for her story to become fleshed out and concrete, you know, we get hints that she's like Katana because she's got fans, and you assume that she's affiliated with her in some way, shape, or form, but you don't really know until Ultimate 3. In the Mortal Kombat 2 tie-in comic, We got Smoke's first official appearance outside of a game. This is canon to the game. And he has like 2 panels. He's piloting a jet for Sub-Zero. Like Sub-Zero just gives him coordinates, and Smoke's like, affirmative, Sub-Zero.
Yeah, in the official, the John Tobias written and drawn MK2 comic book, Smoke appears as like the co-pilot. Like there's another guy in the other pilot seat who's a red ninja. And it's, I mean, we can assume now that it's probably Sector, but his name isn't said, but Sub-Zero directly talks to Smoke and calls him by name, so we know that's him.
So John knew where he was going with him pretty early on.
I believe they would make the game and then make the comic after, so they were probably already working on MK3 when he did the MK2 comic, because there's like a year in between each game. They made those first 3 really quick.
But they did have those ads in the game to, like, you know, send away for the comic.
Yeah, in the demo mode.
I'm guessing that, like, probably by revision 3.0, those were probably in.
Yeah.
So I think that they knew he was Lin Kuei already going into 3. Well, probably, like, winding down from 2, I should say.
Yeah.
So between MK2 and 3, as we mentioned last time on the J Retro, Brady Games had a card game. And I specified last time that they initially gave her a lot of special moves that, you know, you would never really see the like of again. The closest it came to, like, the Jade Kick was, like, you know, she had a fatality that could turn people into Jade Stones, or she made Jade Stones for her friendships.
They made their own things up for the card game, yeah.
So they did the same for Smoke. I think that these little cards probably influenced the way we thought of him a lot back in the day. Because unlike Jade, Smoke had to wait a long-ass fucking time to get his own original shit. So, his bio card for the card game said he was an Outworld character, and it gives him a little bio that says, before he was brainwashed by Shang Tsung, Smoke was an honorable fighter. Now he lives only to serve his new masters with no memory of his former life. And I've wondered about that shit. Is it possible that John had, like, this entire angle of a ninja getting brainwashed that maybe wound up being used in the movie for Scorpion and Sub-Zero? And then he just decided, you know what? We'll keep the brainwashing aspect in terms of the cyber initiative.
I suspect whenever they introduce like a secret character that they have no plan for yet, or they're like, the backstory, we haven't come up with it yet, we'll deal with it later. You see certain wells that they go back to again and again. Like, he's been in hiding since the first tournament. Amnesia is one of those wells. It's a convenient way to say this character has more story, but not yet.
So it does seem that maybe from the outset they knew he was a guy that could get his mind wiped or controlled or what have you.
It's possible. It's also just like, we're putting it off till late. Like fucking Blaze had amnesia in Deadly Alliance and Deception because they hadn't come up with his story yet.
He doesn't know who he is because we don't know who he is. Give us time.
Exactly. It's just, it's a good way to put it off till later.
Some of the other things that they gave Smoke for these cards was he had a back fist special move attack. I guess that's just your standard ninja's close range high punch. They gave him a special move called the Smoke Dodge. On the card, Liu Kang's plainly punching through a field of smoke where a person once was going off to the right. It's basically his MK9 dodge move over 20 years before the fact. So when he got that 9, I was fucking happy because I always loved that thing.
That is kind of like, if you were making a ninja who has smoke powers, isn't that what he would do?
Fucking right.
His whole thing would be like teleporting when you're trying to hit him. Oh no, I've punched a cloud of smoke. That's...
It's a major part of the reason why, like, him not having his own moveset for so many years was a point of frustration for me. Like, everyone else, Jade got hers before he really did.
Smoke was literally the last person in the entire old timeline of all the hidden characters who had stolen moves. He was the last one to get his own.
He got hints of them in Deception, but it wasn't until 9 that he got his own fully fleshed out moveset.
Because, like, Reptile got his moves in 2, like, at the moment he became a roster character. Jade got hers in Ultimate 3, the moment she became a roster character. Noob Saibot got his in Trilogy, the moment he became a main roster character. Smoke is right there on the roster in MK3 and Trilogy, human and robot, using other people's moves.
I have a theory as to why that is for the robot form, and we'll get to that in just a second. So they also gave him Smoke Screen as a special move, where basically there's just this giant field of smoke expanding out from around the guy. I've always wanted to see something like that actually be usable.
Again, it makes sense.
Probably a little bit OP, but...
It's all in the same wheelhouse of... It's like dropping a smoke bomb, except he does it as a superpower.
Exactly.
Ninja stuff.
For a fatality, they gave him smoke inhalation, and he's putting his hand over Scorpion's face, and Scorpion's inflating, like the Katana and Shang Tsung fatalities. Which is something that I've been saying since 1994, that Smoke should have had the inner ear Shang Tsung fatality from 2.
Yeah!
It always made sense to me.
Yeah, it's weird, because he kinda does something sort of like that in 9, but not really.
Trilogy 2. Kinda.
Yeah, kinda.
And here's something neat that never saw the light of day in any sort of game. They gave him a friendship card, and he just sort of sits down cross-legged with his hands on his knees and starts blowing smoke rings toward the camera. There was one more card. They gave him an air harpoon. They just gave him Scorpion Spear, but upwards, as an air counter. I know I spent many years thinking, he's going to use a spear, why not make it original? Jerks. I think that those cards back in the day influenced a lot of the way that I actually saw Smoke. Those are his beginnings, more or less. Now we go into Mortal Kombat 3. And I said I had theories as to why he's like that, why he's still using special moves.
I will say, in terms of, like, one of the things that drew me to Smoke in 3 was actually the fact that because Scorpion had been left off the roster, if I wanted to play the Spear Ninja, I had to play Smoke. For that one brief window of time, it actually worked to his advantage.
And I think that that's because of runoff. If we remember, there were initial, very early plans in Mortal Kombat 3 to make Scorpion into a robot.
Which would have been dumb as hell, story-wise. Like, how does that get there?
I think it gets there by Ed Boon standing on top of a fridge, hopped up on methamphetamines, and John Tobias poking him with a stick and trying to get him to come down.
We're doing robots instead of ninjas, right?
Yeah.
We're still doing Scorpion, though, right?
You know, Ed's a huge Terminator fan. It's in everything he does to a certain degree. He makes the Special Forces guys that have, like, you know, the whole fucking single glowing red eye. I know he wanted Terminator in MK11. He loves that film. He loves the time travel story.
He does love time travel.
Ed's love for Terminator is at times all over this franchise, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to think it was him that first went, you know what the series needs? Robots. So, theoretically, Ed comes up with the idea to turn Scorpion into a robot, and my theory is they get far enough along that they start developing the assets, like a chest harpoon. But then John's like, you know what, no, this is silly, or they both come to agreement this is silly, and they decide to make the yellow robot that can pull people in a different character. And they save Scorpion for next time. But they've still got this spear asset, and they're like, you know who else threw out spears?
It could have gone that way. I don't think Robot Scorpion is an idea that John would have let get very far in early development, but I think he would have gone, well, we're doing... Like, I think most of it was his idea. Like, the robots, I'm sure there was a lot of overlap, because obviously, like, Steve Barron at that point in MK3 had a lot of input, and Steve Barron's a huge Star Wars nerd, and I've seen interviews where he talks about Sector and Cyrex being heavily inspired visually by Boba Fett. Like, that's why Sector has a flamethrower.
Bitchin'.
So I think, like, there was definitely a lot of talk about having robots, and I think Tobias was already in the process of coming up with the Lin Kuei Cyber Initiative as the way to get the robots into the story. And I think maybe Smoke being one of the robots was probably part of the plan from very early on, and it was like, if there was any point where Ed was like, Scorpion is a robot, Tobias would have probably been like, no, but... Scorpion's moves as a robot, okay.
It's just a hypothesis, that's all. I kind of feel that with all the planning and like the work it takes to draw those assets, pixel by pixel, the special effects, and get them into the game, I feel like even something as simple as like a single projectile probably came from that initial idea.
Well, I have to imagine that there's a difference between, like, when they came up with Reptile, they were already several revisions into the arcade machine, and Ed just sort of, hidden character idea off the top of his head on the way to work. When you make them playable, you have to sort of plan ahead. I think having Robo Smoke on the roster as the first playable secret character was something they probably hit on fairly early on.
The thirst was definitely real by this point. Like, people had to have been going for 2 separate games. Like, it's so amazing to see these guys, but I wish we could control them as soon as we could find them, Like, they didn't waste any time.
There are a lot of elements of MK3 where it's like the fans have been demanding or wishing they could do this and this from the first 2 games. This is the one where we'll let them do it.
Yeah.
They created Shiva so people would be able to play as someone with Goro's moves. They made animalities real. Playable hidden character is sort of part of that whole thing.
Animalities. Decisions that didn't age well. But we digress.
But yeah, like I said, MK3 and the Indigo robot was the first time I really looked at Smoke and I was all like, yes, that's the fucking guy. Like, I did like MK2 Smoke. I remember when the movie came out, and they had the little G.I. Joe figures, and Smoke was the hardest of the ninjas to find, other than Reptile, because you had to buy a whole fucking boat to get him.
Yeah, the Dragon MK1. I still picture Reptile riding that thing while Vice City music plays in the background. True story? I used to have the entire set of MK G.I. Joes. Smoke is the only one I still have. He's off on my shelf about 5 feet to the left of me right now.
I think I had all the characters. Could you get Kano without the motorcycle? Because I did not have the motorcycle or Shang's boat.
Shang's boat's the only one that I was missing. My mom could not afford that.
I had another Shang from like a Liu and Shang 2-pack or something.
I think that's the same one that I had. But no, Kano came with that motorcycle. I think that there were variations later on that were like different colors, but like OG MK1 Kano came with that bike.
Yeah, I might not have had Kano, but I did have every other character. I remember the gray Smoke figure was like my prized possession because he was the hardest to find.
I do distinctly remember like seeing him on like the Toys R Us shelf and going, "Oh!"
The other thing was like the fact that Smoke even got a figure was a nice surprise because he wasn't in the movie.
No, it was so awesome. So, MK3.
One of the things that attracted me to Cyber Smoke so much was, like, I didn't, like, get to go to the mall, to the arcade, and play the game a whole lot. Most of my interaction with Mortal Kombat as a franchise, outside of owning the home copies, was through, like, the strategy guides and, like, EGM articles and stuff. So it was a lot of, like, looking at the pictures and reading the text. And so, like, I never had to beat the game to see what all the endings said. And out of all of the Cybers, Smoke was the only one who really had an interesting story, who had something going on in his ending. Yeah. Like, Sector is, at that point in time, just some robot, and Cyrax is just some robot, but Smoke is like, this guy used to be a guy. And he's Sub-Zero's best friend, and Sub-Zero feels real bad about it. And it's like, there was something to sink your teeth into.
For me, seeing him in 3 was like you said, we got that little tease on the select screen. It's like, hey, who's that guy? And then you go through all the trouble of unlocking him to enter the Ultimate Combat Code, and holy shit, it's the dude from the last game, but now he's a robot. How cool is that? And I thought it was cool, but at the same time, I was like, kind of missed that gray and black color scheme. Why is he purple? I know now, obviously. It's just gray and black standard on that particular model. It doesn't look good.
That was kind of one of my problems with MK2 Smoke, is I also don't think it pops very much. Like, it's better on the human ninjas because you have the added flesh tone of the arms and face, so he doesn't just look like a black and white screen or something. On a cyborg, that color scheme would have looked like there's something wrong with the color of your TV set, or it would have come across as he's one of like the Mook ninjas from fucking Defenders of the Realm.
Yeah, it looks inherently generic.
Yeah, that's the problem.
If I'm remembering it right, the SNES version wasn't purple. It was gray. And some of the concept art you saw at the time wasn't purple. It was also gray.
There are so many MK3 strategy guides out there, and every single one, the artwork for Smoke was a different color. Like, there was a gray one, there was a proper bluish-purple one. Then there were ones out there where it was bluish-purple, but the mask was still gray.
So fucking bizarre.
Weird, yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking at him, that's like, this is really cool, and, people would play him all the time, and he was by far one of the most popular characters to use. He was just... had these really sick combos and get out of jail free teleport card, just like Sector, but with the added bonus, you can keep hitting them after because he's got the fucking spear. It was a really good combination of moves that they gave him. And I was like, hey, invisibility! Feel like he should be using Smoke, though. Maybe next time, I thought. Maybe an MK4. Yeah. Oh my god, if I'd only known. If I'd only known.
There have been some missteps in terms of who returns and who doesn't from game to game. But that's a mistake they're still making.
Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay, but now we're coming into the first time he ever had his own bio and his own ending. Yeah. I want to talk about the reason so many of us were attracted to that guy back in the day. Like, so many people's favorite character. He was Temp's favorite character, for God's sake.
We have a person who we know on our Discord, as a member of this channel, sometimes host, who has Smoke in his name. I wonder if that's his favorite character as well.
Gee, I don't know, Scooby. Smoke's story is ultimately one of dehumanization. That's his theme. It's always been. And I've wondered more often than not, like, whether or not all of us, being kids at that point in time, looked at that. Like, the word you'd hear tossed around all the time was tragic. He's a tragic character. Like, it's a horrible fate worse than death that he goes through, because he's the guy out of all three of them that doesn't want this. I've thought about the psychology of that a little bit, like the way we all used to react to him, the way we all loved him for that sad, sad story. And, I think that we latched onto that because maybe, I don't know, we were kids and we're starting on the path towards adulthood and being caught in the mesh and the gears of 9-to-5 jobs, and maybe our attraction to Smoke was inherently tied to a subconscious fear of growing up and becoming a cog in the machine, of not being free. I know. It's probably overthinking it more than it deserves to be, but, I have to believe that there are real reasons, apart from it's just sad that we all latched onto that guy.
Well, I'm not gonna say that your armchair psychology is completely out of line.
I know it's a fucking stretch, but I've probably spent more time thinking about this character and
I think
people's reactions to him than I have the entire cast.
One of the things that works about it so much for me is at that point in time, when we only had the first 3 games, or even if you go as far as Ultimate, there's not a lot of characters at that point in time in the MK universe who they really explore, like, the bond between them. Like, yes, Sonya and Jax are close. Liu Kang and Kitana maybe had a thing. Liu Kang and Kung Lao were, brothers in the same order. None of them were really expressed as close friends the way Smoke and Sub-Zero are. And so, and especially, like, you see, like, the Defenders of the Realm episode that really emphasizes, like, you get to see Smoke being held down on an operating table. Like, they don't show him cutting into him, but he's, like, screaming and resisting, and you know what happens next because you've seen him as a robot, and it's a flashback.
It is unquestionably, like, the most unpleasant and kind of dark stories that anyone had up to date, in a series that had already had, like, people's clans and families being killed by, like, as background notes, though.
People have their families murdered in their backstories, but I would say, like, other than, like, obviously you have Johnny Cage is the real world guy from America who's like, what's all this magic stuff? I just got here. But I would say, even more than him, the most relatable thing in the first 3 games is, for like a child or teenager, is like the idea of having a best friend and seeing something bad happen to them and wishing you could do something for them.
That's about it, isn't it?
That's what it is for me.
He's a building block, and he's a chapter in Sub-Zero's story. And he loses him, and he never gets him back.
He never does get him back, and I think that's one of the missteps.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
It's interesting that, as time has gone on, they've built much more into, like, through cutscenes and story modes, the bond between Liu Kang and Kung Lao, or Johnny and Sonya, or Kitana and Jade. Not so much Sub-Zero and Smoke, even though they had it strongest starting out.
Goddamn fucking shame it is. How many fucking years did we spend, thinking it's gonna happen one day, right? It's gonna find his buddy.
We're still hanging on and waiting for them to tell that story is one of the few things that, like, in terms of wanting to see the story told a certain way, they've done so many angles already in the games that, like, oh, we grew up hearing this was a thing, I want to see this version of it. And, I mean, they haven't always done them right, but they've done most of them. They haven't actually done Sub-Zero and Smoke yet. And that's one of the things that's got me still coming back, even when the games suck, is I can't leave until I see this one fucking thing, at least.
I could maybe live with the fact that he doesn't ever recover his friend, although I want him to. But for me, it was about getting closure for Smoke, because I didn't want him to keep suffering,
Yeah.
I wanted him to find some sort of peace or recover his humanity. As soon as Cyrex got that ending in 4, I was like, uh-oh.
My point of view has always been, like, he doesn't even have to, like, become human again. Like, I don't want to see them magic walk back where he gets his body back the way Cyber Sub-Zero was undone. Like, doing it that way for Cyber Sub-Zero was fine because that was a mistake and Sub-Zero shouldn't be a robot. He already has a story.
That was never going to stick, and we all knew it.
Yeah, but I don't want to see Smoke be turned robot and then just straight be turned human again. I'd rather see him find a path to acceptance or a way to be happy in his new form, or, like, I really like the Deception form where he becomes nanites, because theoretically he can now control his appearance and have whatever body he wants to have.
That's it, right? He doesn't need to fully become human again, but as long as he has some sort of measure of closure and independence, that's what counted for me.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I'm so fucking pissed that they put the reboot where they put it, because Smoke had just gotten there 1 game ago, but story-wise, like, he's still fucking under Noob Saibot's control. Like, it wasn't enough for me. Wait 1 game, give me Smoke with agency, and then fucking reboot if you're gonna reboot.
The story of MK in the original timeline is like 2.5 acts, man. So many series just can't fucking get there. They can't draw the curtain. Look at Mega Man. Oh, look, in the ending of 9, there's some blueprints for Zero. I guess this means that one of these days, we're gonna see a game where we find out what happened to the original Mega Man, and why X shows up so many years later. What happened? Oh look, it's Castlevania! What do you mean Dracula's castle was sealed away in an eclipse permanently in 1999? We're gonna get a game of that, right? It's so hard to do a third fucking act.
I hate this about comic books, too. They always, like, when they're leading up to, like, another Crisis event, they know they're gonna reboot. Why don't they come up with a story that'll get the fucking Superman and Batman to the age of retirement, and then do the Crisis?
It's the hell out of me, man.
It's always in the middle of some story arc that's already ongoing. The fucking editors just go, sales are down, time to restart. There's never any fucking planning.
But anyway, we established that this guy has a story. We're all attracted to it. We've established he's got some awesome special moves. We didn't talk about the fact that he fucking blows up the entire goddamned world as a finishing move. It's the greatest thing. It truly is.
I think it's funny. One Cyrax bomb won't leave a crater in the street, but 12 will take out the planet.
You know, I sometimes want things to be serious, and I want fatalities to suit the character and be 100% fitting. That scenario, fucking YOLO. I loved it.
Yeah,
I still love it.
It's a fatality. It doesn't have to.
No, it does not. It is just so fun to do. There's something even in the fucking input for it. Whole block, up, roundabout to the back. Let her rip. It is just so much fun. And he's got that fucking other one where he just drops a bomb in your... We'll get to fatalities afterwards, but...
He shoves a grenade down your throat. And that's something I miss is him and Sector's throw in 3. They used to have these little arms that would come out of the shoulders of their armor.
Yeah, I miss those tiny arms.
These little animatronic armature things. I miss when they'd have things like that just coming out of every place.
Dehumanizes them.
You never really know what the full complement of weapons a cyber ninja is hiding on their body is. They could have guns on their knees like Boba Fett. I don't know.
I guess should probably give a brief mention to the fact that like Cyrax, Sector, and Smoke kind of serve to illustrate the inherent flaw of the whole cyber initiative. The more of yourself you put into it, the more willing you are to give yourself to it. The more you go along with the procedure, the less there is left of you.
Yeah.
It's hard to see that these days because Sector seems to like be kind of a leader to the pack.
They're at a point now where they're trying to, like, when they write the stories and the characters, they want each one to stand out as much as possible and have a personality so that they can write these 3-line intros for every fight and stuff like that. And you see it in costumes too, like, they shy away from palette swapping, which makes sense, but they shy away so far from having everybody have even a little bit in common, when it would make sense for their uniforms to be similar to one another because they're part of the same group.
And the entire point of the Cyber Ninjas was that they're dehumanized automatons. They look, act, and they think the exact same way.
It sucks that Sector and Cyrax and Smoke aren't playable in X or 11, unless you count Triborg. But on the flip side, when they show up in story mode, they have the same body. And that makes sense to me. The Cyber Ninjas come off an assembly line. They're supposed to be stripped of individuality. They're supposed to look the same.
That's part of the inherent horror of the conversion. That's what Smoke was trying to escape in the first place.
Yeah.
Losing his autonomy, his independence, his capacity for sentient thought.
And similarly to that, when Battle of the Realms came out, people were complaining that Sector and Cyrax were using each other's moves. That didn't bother me, because as we see from the Smoke blows up the world ending, they all do have access to the same bombs and missiles. They just, in gameplay, choose which ones go to which character to make them play differently. It's a flavor thing, but it makes sense they'd all have the same arsenal.
I wouldn't want a Sector that's throwing out nets, but at the same time, story-wise, it does make a certain amount of sense, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, if they do have a little bit of the original personality left in them, then it would make sense when they're selecting which weapons to fire that they'd stick with the ones that they're comfortable with, or that are the closest to how they fought when they were human.
Right.
But that doesn't mean Cyrax can't shoot a missile. I mean, technically, from MK9 on, we can see that when their chest compartments open up, they don't have missiles in their chest. They have like a glowing hole that materializes stuff, like it teleports missiles into the arena.
Nanomachines, son. It's what everything's made out of.
Yeah, it's either a teleporter or it's like a Star Trek replicator, and it's just making the missiles out of thin air.
As to how Smoke's actual plot went, He does not have a bio in the game, but a lot of strategy guides around that time kind of gave him one, and it's up on MK Warehouse. I recall seeing it in a couple of the guides at that time, too.
They all had the same one, so the text had to come from somewhere.
Smoke Unit LK7T2 is the third prototype cyber ninja built by the Lin Kuei. He tried to escape the automation process with Sub-Zero, but was captured. His memories were stripped away, leaving behind an emotionless killer. However, Sub-Zero believes that within this machine is a human soul trying to escape. And I've seen that in a couple of the guides from around the time.
Yeah, and not every guide was made by the same company. Like, they aren't all Brady games or whatever. So, like, I'm gonna go ahead and guess that they got that text from Tobias, that they weren't just making up their own copy. Especially because, does his ending call him LK7T2, or was that the first place where you hear it?
His ending does not refer to him as that at all.
Okay, so the fact that his codename is 7T2 comes from a bio that doesn't appear in the games.
Yep.
That must have been Tobias. I don't see the magazine guys inventing that on their own and getting away with it.
It's been canonized in future games. They call him that in 11 and X, I think.
Yeah, Triborg's smoke style is called LK7T2.
Exactly. That said, his and Sub-Zero's endings are kind of two of a pair. They go together.
Yeah.
And it's through these that you find out, like, how things more or less turn out. Along with, I guess, part of Cyrax's ending as well.
Yeah.
In Vicious Battle, this is Sub-Zero's ending. In Vicious Battle, Sub-Zero faces Cyrax and Sector, but not alone. He finds his third Lin Kuei assassin, the elusive Smoke. Before automation, Smoke and Sub-Zero were allies. Sub-Zero helps Smoke recall his past and gains him as an ally once again. Sub-Zero defeats his cyborg assassins with the help of Smoke, and finds it takes all his own inner strengths to defeat Khan and the Outworld minions. That doesn't really matter that much because, Liu Kang took care of that.
Yeah.
But that part, as well as Smoke's own ending, Smoke soon finds himself being pursued by Shao Kahn's minions. He learns that he still has a soul and his true mission is the destruction of the Outworld invaders. He defeats Khan, That's not exactly canon. Smoke's ending in 3 is basically just giving us the info dump as to who he is. And, the fact that he was turned into a robot. It's Sub-Zero's ending where, you find out that they team up against Cyrax and Sector and overcome them. And at that point, Sub-Zero theoretically reprograms Cyrax, tells him to go after Khan. Cyrax does this, but gets stuck in the Gobi Desert. Once Khan gets defeated, he waits for orders.
Yeah, Khan is defeated. Cyrax starts trying to wander back home to the Lin Kuei Temple for new orders and gets lost in the desert. And we know that part is canon for sure because him being lost in the desert and then found again is part of his story in both MK4 and Deadly Alliance.
Right. Deadly Alliance would replace the Lin Kuei finding him with Special Forces finding him, but that's about it.
That was just kind of a shortening, because the Lin Kuei found him, but then the Special Forces got him to turn. It's easier if the Special Forces are the ones who found him.
One assumes Sector just fucked off and ran away after being beaten.
It depends on how much time, because after MK4, Sub-Zero goes back to the Lin Kuei to take over. When he gets there, he finds Sector killing the Grandmaster and taking over himself, so it probably happened right away after 4, and then he spent the next couple years until Deadly Alliance happens, rebuilding the stuff and recruiting Frost and the new ninjas and all of that.
So, Smoke makes another appearance in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Twice the smoke, double the fun.
Yes, you can play as Human Smoke in Ultimate and Trilogy.
Worth mentioning that the way to fight Smoke was through a combat code on the Versus screen. 205205. In vanilla MK3, you fought as robot form. In Ultimate, the human. They teased you a little bit in the arcade intro, where you'd see him and Noob Saibot fighting each other in the subway. That wasn't fucking possible. You couldn't do that shit. For one thing, whenever you select Smoke, which is done by going over to Robot Smoke, selecting him, and holding back, high punch, high kick, block, and run until the round started. After the first round, there is a bug where every fucking round, every fight he has, he's stuck in the blue portal fighting people. It's so fucking annoying. I hate it so much, God Christ. Oh, being a Smoke fan is suffering.
They did start calling the Blue Portal stage Smoke's Portal, didn't they?
It was also called Slack Busores, which is classic Sub-Zero scrambled for some strange reason.
Yeah.
Smoke's Portal, I think, was the MK3 one, where you fought him.
Smoke's Portal is the orange one. The blue one is the one our show is named after, The Lost.
It's basically the portal you see at the Choose Your Destiny screen and in like all the arcade bios.
Yeah.
Electricity in the middle of a portal. There's like ladders in them. It's very dead, very, very Mad Max, and I've always kind of loved that.
It's like the only stage in the game that really captures the whole merger situation, where like Outworld and Earthrealm are combining.
But yeah, you can fight him with that combat code, and he's not particularly difficult or anything. He's just another character. Wasn't like Noob Saibot in that game, where I think it was a harder Black Kano with no special moves, more health.
Well, that's the thing. Like the AI, if you give him the power to run twice as fast and all that kind of stuff, then the playable version of Smoke would have had that too, and he would have been unbalanced.
But anyway, yeah, he's in Ultimate, and you select him with that code, and he's still just Scorpion, but he's got pop-up combos.
Yeah, he's got his own properties with the normals, and I think like his run speed is faster.
I'd have to go back and check.
I've always heard that that's like one of the little things. Like Human Smoke is supposed to be one of the most top-tier characters in like Ultimate.
He is. He's definitely up there.
Because he's different enough from Scorpion that it makes a difference.
He makes Scorpion obsolete.
Yeah.
He's got like the pop-up combos. He can spear you in after like a 2 or 3 hit knock-up. He's capable of like some insane fucking juggles up there with Ermac. It's a pity you're stuck at the fucking blue portal every time you use the gun. Anyway. So yeah, he's a lot of fun to use. Still has his invisibility. Doesn't really have his own fatalities with the exception of one. He shares it with Ermac, and it's the head uppercut.
Yeah.
It ain't special.
I think he had his own stuff in Trilogy.
He did. Before we get to Trilogy, like the other secret characters in Ultimate, he also had his own unique ending as Human Smoke.
Indeed.
Which was completely hilarious. Incidentally, he has no select portrait of his own as, like, a human ninja. He's just represented by a blue square with a red question mark.
Yeah.
So his ultimate MK3 ending goes as follows. Winning the tournament enables Smoke to escape his artificial body. He then devotes his life to study the fighting skills, that's study, not studying,
Study,
of his counterpart ninjas, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Reptile. Without warning, Smoke once again vanishes. He retreats into the hidden forest to continue his study, and will remain there until he has perfected the skills of the remaining ninjas and can compete in Mortal Kombat 4.
Yeah, there's some weird choices they would make when they'd come up with these, like, quickie filler endings for the hidden characters in Ultimate. All of them, like, Ermac got a different one in Trilogy, fucking Smoke got a different one in Trilogy, Melina gets a different one in Trilogy.
Classic Sub-Zero just got a bunch of bullshit. But they rectified that along with a number of other things about the character in Trilogy. He still didn't have his own special moves, but he got his own finishers, and interestingly enough, he's got 2 separate select screen photos, depending on your version of Trilogy. On the N64 version, he's still selectable by selecting Cyber Smoke and inputting the old Human Smoke code from UMK3. Alternatively, he and Chameleon can be unlocked via use of a 6-digit Ultimate Combat code. On the PlayStation, he's unlocked by default. And on each of them, he faces a different direction. Both images are just classic Sub-Zero select screen image, but recolored so that he's against a red portal rather than blue. He faces right on N64 and left on the PlayStation version. Additionally, fun bit of trivia, during the lead up to MK Trilogy, there were some previews in video game magazines that showed Smoke having a completely different, unused character selection image. A lot of people who mess with Mugen actually use this as their Human Smoke icon. It's really neat. It's him against a purplish background. No idea why neither version used it. We could probably do an entire episode on the differences between those two versions of Trilogy. There's so much.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. Always wondered about some of that stuff. But, the interesting thing to me is, I said about how most of my interaction with the MK3 era games was looking at the pictures and reading the text in the strategy guides and stuff because I didn't get to go to the arcade that often and I didn't have the home versions.
Right.
So the strategy guides for Ultimate never had a bio and ending for human smoke. So I actually didn't know about that shitty placeholder ending until, like, the internet age. Like, I only knew the Trilogy one, like, the good ending.
Oh, man. I was so happy when they overwrote that shit. You're not gonna actually make him a copycat ninja? Fuck off! He should be using smoke! This is a running theme. This is a running theme for years.
Another unique thing Smoke's always had going for him that separates him from every other character and makes him stand out in the arcade era was that he was the only guy who had, like, a particle effect coming off his sprite.
Oh yeah, like, it was fun fighting as him and fighting against him. It was so distracting all the time.
Yeah,
just
like,
a lot of fun.
Nowadays, tons of characters have something glowing, or like Sub-Zero will breathe mist and stuff like that. Smoke was the only one back in the 2D era.
Fucking A. I'm gonna share an ultimate MK3 arcade memory. I almost forgot to give this up. I was one of the first people, if not the first person in my neighborhood to know about the Human Smoke Ultimate free code. So I go to the arcade, putzing around trying to beat the game and failing like I do on most days. And, a new challenger appears. Some guy walks up next to me and puts a token in. And I'm like, do I do it? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Let's see if he knows. So I go over to Smoke and I select him. He selects this dude, it was Cyrax. And I start holding the buttons. And he looks down at my hands and starts doing the same thing. He's like, what are you doing? And as the round starts, poof, I look over at him. Thanks. I was just fucking with him, making him think that both players had to do it. I whooped his ass because he was completely caught off guard. It was so fun. And then he came back and just narrowly beat me in best of 3.
Nice.
It was a good time. And I shared the code with him afterwards, and he said, fucking hey, man, I'll tell my friends. Cool, thank you. This is awesome. That was fun. It's kind of arcade story I miss having.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. There's just no secrets anymore because the internet exists. It's what it is.
Data miners are a blessing to every franchise out there with the possible exception of MK. I get it. They provide a valuable service because we should be careful with our money. It's good to know what's coming up in advance, I wouldn't want to blow $30 on a character pack that has 4 mystery characters. But I wish that we could just find shit, I wish MK was still about secrets. Smoke epitomized that. The secret character of secret characters. Well, after Reptile, maybe.
I think if they transitioned to a different genre, like if they made more Shaolin Monks type games.
If only.
They could do a lot more with secrets and Easter eggs.
That'd be so nice.
I've been playing Halo Infinite, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that people find as they're exploring the open world. Like there's a secret cavern where there's a giant sandwich.
The shit we could get in a modern Shaolin Monks style game could be so awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, Smoke's Trilogy ending. Before his transformation into a cybernetic assassin, Smoke was one of the Lin Kuei's finest ninja. It was during this time that he came to know his greatest ally, Sub-Zero. When the Lin Kuei decide to automate their warriors, the two attempt to escape. While Sub-Zero successfully eluded capture, Smoke did not. He would become a robotic nightmare, his soul trapped inside a living machine. In his human form, Smoke was a fierce warrior. In his mechanical body, he is even more lethal. But his true form is that of a text cuts off at bottom of screen. Seriously, depending on your version, there's so much fucking text you can't see the whole thing. But his true form is that of a human, one he'll know, again, only in dreams. So that's your first fully official, completely non-canon character in an MK
Yeah, I respect that they made an ending that specifically says the character or this version of them isn't canon and that he can't go back to being Human Smoke. Like, I wish we got to see that kind of thing more often with, like, what-if versions of characters. Like, there's no reason classic Sub-Zero needed a bio and ending that pretends he's some guy.
No, like, they didn't actually fix his Ultimate 3 ending, I don't think. They left it the way it was.
Yeah, no, it still just says that everybody's shocked when he unmasks and he's a guy who's missing from a previous tournament. And it's still like, do they mean Johnny Cage?
What you talking about, man? It was the Great Kung Lao.
Obviously.
Oh, no, it's Raiden. He just took a couple days off. and that would be it. That would be the last time we saw that guy for so many years.
Smoke not only isn't in MK4 or Deadly Alliance, he's not even mentioned in 4 or Deadly Alliance.
The only thing you get for a starving Smoke fan is that Scorpion has an alternate color palette where he's wearing gray, but he's got a skull head.
Yeah, it's more like Scorpion, but he's like ashen colored, you know?
Yeah.
It's not Smoke.
No, it's not, but I just like to overanalyze everything and go, are they trying to tell me my boy is dead? Did they slaughter my boy?
I mean, technically he was dead.
Technically.
And I mean, that's the thing, like, as a Sub-Zero fan, it's extraordinarily frustrating that he just seems to have forgotten his best friend. But if you look at it from what we know from Deception, where Smoke seemingly died, it does make sense. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, raid the Nether Realm and try to get his soul back? I was thinking about how we've never really seen the escape from the Lin Kuei, and that's one of the things that's sort of frustrating, at least in the games. Like, we've seen it in Defenders of the Realm, and we've seen it in Battle for the Realms, but, like, one of the things that's so frustrating and has me, like, hanging on waiting for when are they gonna do the Sub-Zero and Smoke story properly is that there's these themes in that story that are part of what make it so interesting that the Mortal Kombat games have really yet to do right. Like, heroic sacrifice.
Yeah. We've always kind of wondered about the scenario wherein Smoke and Sub-Zero escaped from the Lin Kuei, and how exactly it came to pass that Smoke was captured and Sub-Zero was not. And you, like me, I think a lot of us tended to assume that Smoke kind of did his best to get Sub-Zero out of the way in one way, shape, or form, and it resulted in him being captured.
There's definitely a sense, and certainly like Battle of the Realms picked up on this, there's a sense that however the two of them escaping from the Lin Kuei went, there was a situation where Smoke was like, either keep going, don't come back for me, or was like, I'll hold them off, you keep going. Like, one way or another, Smoke got caught so that Sub-Zero wouldn't.
The fanfic version of it in my mind went that, like, they got chased through a forest next to a stream or a river, and Sub-Zero's like, I'll build an ice boat, and he does. And then Smoke's like, great, and then knocks his friend out and sends him the fuck down the river. Stood back to make sure that they were off their trail.
The Defenders of the Realm version is kind of clumsy. There's just like the two of them are running away, and Sub-Zero wants to go one way, and he's like, follow me, and Smoke just yells no and runs the other way.
No. It's fucking brilliant. Smoke, follow me! No! Keeps fighting.
But, like, the image of it, where Smoke creates a giant smoke cloud as Sector and Cyrax are, like, jumping him, and you can't really see what's going on, that the visual of it fits really well.
It does.
And the reason I was thinking about it is, like I said, there are certain things that I don't think, like, for all the nuance that they've added to the storytelling over the years, for all the things they've gotten better at depicting, as they've added cutscenes and story modes. One of the things that they've never really done is like a heroic character sacrificing themselves for another. Like, I think that's something that's missing from the Mortal Kombat narrative.
Yeah, here's the opportunity to show that, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things that just shows like how close and how much they care about each other that you have with Sub-Zero and Smoke. You could certainly have a moment like that with Liu Kang and Kung Lao, but it wouldn't mean as much because Kung Lao's such a jealous asshole in most of his depictions these days.
Unfortunately.
And also, like, that moment just in the current version of the story that doesn't exist. There's not really...
Yeah. There's no room.
I mean, you could theoretically have a point during MK2 because that seems to be the thing now. Every time somebody shows the fucking second tournament, Kung Lao gets fucking killed. And Liu Kang is on the sidelines watching it happen.
Ugh.
They could do a version of that where it happens because, like, maybe Liu Kang was wounded in a fight and Lao was like, no, let me take this round. But that's not what they've done. You know, it's just, it doesn't exist a moment like that anywhere in MK's story except with Sub-Zero and Smoke.
I'm just going to go on record here and say something. The MK fan base has changed so much, so very much in the days since we were playing the stuff on arcades and PS1 and PS2. Shipping was not a thing back in the day, anywhere near to the extent as it is now. Shipping is a part of an extent of every fandom, and I normally don't care what people do with characters. You know, it's your fantasy. It's what you think looks cute, whatever. Go for it. The reaction I have when people like to ship Smoke and Sub-Zero is just bile. Just vomit and bile. The whole point of Smoke, I feel like, as a character, kind of also ties into the fact that Noob Saibot, Bihan, is this relentless emotion. I don't know about emotionless, but jackass who doesn't care about the sanctity of human life.
At the risk of the pun, he's cold-blooded. That's Bihan's character, he's like... He doesn't feel empathy for people because he's had such a bitter, closed-off life where he's like, if I start caring about someone, they're just gonna die, so why would I?
So I've never seen Bihan and Kuai Liang as being particularly close as brothers. Like, certainly there's a measure of familial affection and deference there, but I have always seen Smoke as the surrogate brother Kuai Liang never really had.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, they would have grown up together. Like, I presume they're about the same age, and they trained in the same classes, because Bihan is older than Kuai Liang, so they probably weren't... Yeah. Like, Bihan was out going on missions and wearing the Sub-Zero name. He was active as a ninja.
Exactly.
While Kuai Liang was still in training. So it sort of makes sense to me, like that's how I've kind of imagined why they're friends, is because Kuai Liang and Smoke trained together. They're about the same age.
I think that they probably knew each other for a fair number of years.
Probably at least since they were teenagers. I mean, given Smoke's backstory, that's about how old he was when he lost his memories because got his powers sacrificed to a demon, joined the Lin Kuei, blah, blah, blah.
Typical MK childhood.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about his origin story because it wasn't introduced until 9, so we'll get into it when we get there.
Yeah. For now, we don't hear from Smoke. We assume he's dead or just MIA for years and years.
96 or 97, whenever Trilogy came out, was the last time we saw him.
Trilogy was 96. We went from 1996 to 2004. 8 years.
Yeah.
Without knowing what the fuck was up with that guy, along with so many people like Ermac and Jade.
That's the thing, like, now that we have story modes, somebody's not dead unless you see them die.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if a character was in a game and they weren't in the next game, and they didn't tell you where they went, the safest assumption was they were probably dead.
And we had that prediction for so many characters, and it came true for, like, Shiva.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was the only one.
They all come back. They all came fucking back. Except for maybe Kintaro, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Smoke was technically dead.
Sort of.
So what Deception reveals is that during MK3, Smoke was attacked by Outworlders, by the extermination squads, and was quote-unquote deactivated. And his deactivated body was taken as a trophy and thrown in the Outworld treasure room, and just sat there from 3 until Deception. At which point, Noob Saibot somehow discovered it was in there, reactivated it, reprogrammed him to serve him.
You can see a little bit of this depicted in a couple of panels in the shit-canned Mortal Kombat Deception comic book that was to be produced, which came with the controllers that came out around that time.
The interesting thing about those couple panels in that comic book is that it's the first time in canon that we see Noob Saibot's shadow abilities depicted as like a liquid form.
Yeah.
He was literally made of oil that could be set on fire in the TV show Conquest. And he kind of melts out of Ermac in Annihilation.
The only hint we had that he had like those liquidy effects was that if you blocked his shadow throw in Trilogy, it would kind of poof out into like a spherical series of drops. But that was about it.
Yeah, it kind of behaved like the blood sparks. Yeah, that was the first real time in canon that Noob Saibot was shown melting into liquid darkness.
Yes, in the dungeons he finds Smoke in his cybernetic ninja form, which is given a look of its own for the first time in Deception.
The helmet is largely the same as the classic UMK3 helmets, but his dreadlocks are gone, and he has like gas mask breathing tubes coming out of his cheeks into his shoulders instead.
I've never been the hugest fan of it. It varies in shade depending where you're looking at it.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it in the Armageddon model viewer, it looks very mostly dark indigo or like barely visible shade of blue, but it looks much lighter in the Deception bio pictures.
Depending on the picture, like, and if it's in-game or a still image, sometimes it just looks like it's all that shade of indigo, like the UMK3. And sometimes it looks like it has like a pearlescent effect where it's gray in some lighting and blue when the light hits it.
It's frustratingly inconsistent.
It is inconsistent, but I do like the idea, the pearlescent gray-blue paint. I think that's an interesting, like, compromise between is he a gray ninja or is he a bluish-purple ninja?
Yeah, that's fair. I think my issues with the costume lie mainly in, like, how angular it gets around the midsection. Like, it almost looks like he has no waist.
Yeah, the Deadly Alliance Cyrax and him both had kind of a silver ribbing for a stomach. And it was arguably a little too narrow. It was kind of like a 1950s robot, almost.
Yeah. The detail that I do like a lot about it, though, is that on his chest, front, and center, you have this kind of three-pronged point, and I've always taken it that was supposed to be the harpoon that he uses.
Yeah.
That this thing, like, flips forward, shoots forward. That's what his MK3 weapon was, and it was, like, placed up there.
If it's not literally the harpoon, it's at least a harpoon-shaped logo.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Foot Clan logo in the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon.
It's not a bad outfit. I don't know, it's almost there for me, but not quite. I'm not sure how I feel about the shoulder pads. I don't know.
It's not perfect, but I think I like it best of the options available, because I've always thought, like, Triborg is a little too over-detailed, and the modern Cyber Ninja, like the NRS-era Cyber Ninja designs, all have too much color on them. They look like Iron Man suits. I wish they had black thighs and that kind of thing, like the MK3 ones did.
Yeah.
I miss that. Because they're supposed to be cyber ninjas. They're supposed to look like flexible and stealthy, theoretically.
They should. It always bothers me when they look like rejects from a Michael Bay film that had a can of yellow paint dumped over them.
This has been true since the 3D era, so it's not just an NRS thing, but it really bothers me that none of them wear the, like, flap anymore. Like, they could have segmented samurai armor over their junk like, Shao Kahn does, or Baraka.
Yeah. I'm very picky when it comes to Cyber Ninja outfits. I kind of feel like there's so very few great ones.
Yeah.
When I think of a Cyber Ninja, I still default back to the MK3 outfit, however dated it may be.
Well, the MK3 outfit, for whatever else it's got going on, like, yeah, it's motocross armor bought at a Walmart, literally. But
yes,
the helmets, I still think the MK3 helmet is inherently perfect, and every time they change it, like the ones in 9X and 11, just look worse.
Over-detailed, man. Over-detailed.
Cyrax doesn't even have the eyebrows anymore. He has, like, these square ones. It doesn't look like an MK3 Cyber Ninja anymore. It looks like it's from a different franchise.
I'm not too sure, but on the Deception Cyber Ninja outfit render, it does kind of look like the smoke might be coming out of, like, vents near his cheeks where the tubes are. I think that's his filtration system or something when he's in that mode.
It's possible.
Oh, also, this is the first time anywhere in the games where Smoke got red eyes.
That's true. In the 3D era, they hadn't yet established that every Cyber Ninja has a specific secondary color. That mostly came from MK9. There's wallpaper art, like, you know the cover art for an Armageddon where it was like a close-up of half of someone's face, and then their archenemy would be standing in the background? There's one of Cyrax where the lens of his helmet appears red. So they hadn't yet decided that, like, Sector should have blue eyes, and Cyrax should have green eyes, and Smoke should have red eyes yet. But Smoke was the first one to get the color.
This isn't the first time it happened. The first time it ever happened anywhere was back in Mortal Kombat Conquest, but we'll get to that.
That's true.
I think it's a really good look. At least in terms of him being like something other than human when he's not human. I love the detail.
In terms of choosing the right complementary color, I think red works best for Smoke, because obviously you can't have red on red with Sector. And I don't think it would have looked right on Cyrax. I think green works best for Cyrax's yellow.
And it also, in terms of actually depicting how different and corrupted he was from when he was a human being, red being the eye color of evil characters, right? It works.
Right, that's the other thing. Like, he has red eyes because he ends up a cyber demon, and the red eyes are even more prominent in his alternate costume.
On the topic of costumes, I have a theory about Deception.
Okay.
The way he looks, and the way Noob Saibot looks. The original costume concept for what Noob Saibot was going to be is what became Havoc.
Yeah.
Or at least Havoc's alternate.
Havoc's alt with the hood was going to be a noob design, and they decided to look too different, so they made it its own character, yeah.
Which was a reasonable choice, I found. It was honestly too great of an original design to go to waste.
Yeah, it's a really good design, but it also it does look like a ninja with the mask off.
Kinda.
And I think if it was all in black, it would still pass for a Noob Saibot.
It could have been. At that point in time, we just figured he had a scary toothed demon face because of one of his MK4 alts.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird, low detail enough skull that it almost looked like an alien.
It was a scowly-faced gray.
Yeah.
To my point, I have always been of the opinion that the Noob Smoke concept in Deception initially came from a desire to give fans a little bit of both. Now, all of us back in the day, when we first saw the Great Human Noob Saibot, the silver pads, and like the silver mask, we were all like, since when the fuck does he have human skin? It's still an outlier. And I was rewatching the Smoke Combat card before we started this.
Yeah.
And Steve and Ed are talking about, we wanted to give the players a little bit of both.
Yeah, they wanted to have, in Deception, robot Smoke for the people who like it, and human Smoke for the people who like that.
So I think, and I've always thought that the whole Noob Smoke tag team concept came from an initial plan to be able to give Smoke the ability to swap back and forth between human and cyber ninja at will. And that's what Noob's initial outfit was. It was originally human Smoke. And then they decided at some point that, you know what, Noob deserves to be in this game too. So they just altered a few details, painted it black, and called it a day. Most of the characters in Deception, their costumes are very, very different from one another. Noob's really isn't. Plus or minus a few details, but they mostly just change the color scheme. That's basically about it. And when you look at Noob Smoke in the game, Smoke's doing things you might expect of him. He has an actual Smoke stun move, thank God. First time ever he's using it as part of his arsenal. Only took us this long. He disappears in a puff of smoke and comes back and he punches you, and he's got a forward punch with Noob Saibot. But Noob's moves on his own. What has he got? Not much. He's got invisibility, which Smoke had in prior games.
Yeah.
And he's got a bunch of ninja stars.
He does throw shurikens as opposed to doing literally any of his moves from Trilogy.
He got some of that stuff back in Armageddon. But here he was just doing very generic ninja stuff. And we know we know for a fact that they had initially planned Smoke to be a single character.
There were originally plans for them to be separate. I have to wonder, though, I feel like the elements of, like, being able to tag someone else in also feel reminiscent of Noob's shadow clones. So maybe...
Yeah, that's possible.
Maybe it was just like, well, we want to have this Noob stuff. We want to have this Smoke stuff. But this didn't work out over here. And that didn't work out over there, so why don't we just combine the two ideas?
I think that was it. I think it was a compromise.
Yeah.
When you're watching that bio card, they're like, we wanted to give them a little bit of each character, and they show the cyber demon form when they're like talking about human, but that Smoke's cyber demon form in Deception isn't what I'd call analogous to being a human at all. I've always thought that silver noob outfit was meant for Smoke.
I've always kind of felt like they saw Nano Smoke as being something close to human Smoke, but as a fan, I realized that that's not satisfying to human Smoke fans. That's not what they wanted. Because people who want human Smoke are not that different from people who want human Reptile in that they're not looking for a compromise. They want it to be exactly like it was. Whether it makes sense or not, because those of us who pay attention to the story know Reptile, he doesn't transform, it's a disguise. It's a mask that comes off in MK1, 2, and 3.
It's just like they want a ninja, because ninjas are fucking cool.
Yeah. In Smoke's case, I can see how that's valid.
It's a scenario where I've just kind of always wanted the best of all worlds into one package.
Yeah.
To this day, I think that they struggle with, do we give them the human version or do we give them the cyber version? And I've been screaming at the top of my lungs for years. It doesn't matter. You have the technology and the capability to give us both, even if one is non-canon. What matters is that the character feels unique and original.
For all logical intents and purposes, there's no real reason that human Smoke and cyber Smoke should have different move sets. So it should solely come down to primary costume, alternate costume. You can do both as the same character.
Yeah. Simple as.
It really is that simple. And I will say this, like, as far as the Nano Smoke design in Deception, I like the idea of Nano Smoke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The costume that they came up with is just pretty ugly. That's the problem. Like, his mask looks like a cartoonish twisting of a cyber ninja mask. You know, like the eyebrows and all the points are like pointy and angry. It just looks like if you were making like a Looney Tunes-ish cartoon and you had this character and you were showing the twisted and evil version of this character, these are the exaggerated facial features that you would give it.
If I look at it and I squint, I tend to think that they were going for some sort of vaguely reminiscent of a Chinese demon or dragon type of design. It's almost there, but not really quite. When I first saw this design when Deception came out, I was nuts about it. I was all over it, and I loved it to pieces. I still appreciate a lot of things about it.
Like we said, if this was their sort of halfway attempt to have a human Smoke, he does have the proportions of a human being. Like, the shape of the cloudy, transparent body is the shape of a muscular human character model. And then it has a V over top of it. It's dressed like a ninja.
Yeah, sort of.
It's just that it's got these weird holes in his pants, like Kira has, like, I don't know what was going on in the 2000s, that they thought pants with holes in the thighs and belts over it was good fashion, but they did it on a lot of characters, and it was bad every time.
I have been calling those things the garbage man pants since time immemorial.
Yeah.
I think I might be able to cope with everything else. I really love the transparent, smoky skin.
Yeah.
That's such a great detail. The only compromise about that is that it makes it look like his head's just kind of floating there, and you can see the back of his head. It's a little odd.
It makes the twisted to look evil cyber ninja helmet even goofier than it already looks. Like, the helmet doesn't work and the pants don't work, but the idea of a man made of smoke wearing clothes isn't inherently bad.
I just wish he didn't have those fucking holes in the side of his leg. They're almost chaps.
In the concept art for MK9, there was an attempt, like an up-resed remake of Nano Smoke, and they chose to not give him pants. Which, if the smoke is his skin, then that just makes him naked.
I'm uncomfortable.
So I don't know if that's gonna work. It looked better in theory, but when you stop to think about it and realize that means those are just his naked legs, it gets weird. That's all.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and you know what? It's a nice little update of it, but when you think about it, he's got to be wearing like a Speedo under that at most.
Yeah,
Just let the man put on some pants, for crying out loud.
It's tricky. It's tricky to figure out the clothing to visible smoky body ratio.
It does look fucking cool, though, in the right light.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it looks a lot better. It's just that when you stop and think about it and you go, oh, wait, if he's not wearing pants, then...
So, fighting styles. In Deception, he had Mitsu. It's Northern Chinese in terms of origin. It's part of the long fist style of fighting techniques. And when Deception first came out and I saw him using it, I wasn't entirely sure it was a real thing. I thought it was some sort of joke or riff on the phrase "me too" because he stole people's moves. But no. It's real, it exists, and that's his fighting style of choice.
It's real, but it's not particularly common or famous because the Wikipedia page for it is only 3 sentences long, and one of those sentences is the Mitsu style is used by the character Smoke in Mortal Kombat Deception and its sequel Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
Yeah, he's probably the only person in all of pop culture to ever use it, to a notable extent. Couldn't tell you much more about it, honestly.
I mean, to come up with multiple styles for 20-some characters on a roster, 3 games in a row, they had to dig deep.
Yeah.
They had to come up with some crap, which... That's always been kind of my issue with, like, looking at the fighting styles in the 3D era and trying to find character commentary in them, because so many of them really had nothing to do with anything. Like, why does Cyrax have ninjutsu and Scorpion doesn't, when Scorpion is the only one who's from an actual Japanese ninja clan?
I'm actually surprised that they never tossed in Ansetsuken in there as a Street Fighter reference. But I can at least see Smoke using a long fist style of technique, as opposed to what they gave him as a second style when he and Noob were separate in Armageddon, which was Judo.
Yeah. Judo had previously belonged to someone else in Deadly Alliance.
Yeah, Jax used it.
I mean, that makes sense for Jax. He's supposed to be a grappler. I'm not sure why Smoke would have it.
Kenshi also had it in Deception.
Which I can almost justify by the fact that Kenshi had joined the Special Forces, and so he would have been trained in, like, military defensive styles, like CQC, Metal Gear bullshit.
If you want to believe the MK Wiki, apparently Kenshi learned Judo during his adolescent years.
I mean, Judo is Japanese, and Kenshi is theoretically part Japanese.
It's a pretty basic, like, self-defense style. I would assume that it is actually part of most forms of hand-to-hand training combat.
Like, I don't have a problem with it on Kenshi. I think the fact that Smoke has a Chinese style at all is impressive, but probably a coincidence. Like, I don't think they picked it going, well, the Lin Kuei is located in China. I think they just slapped some random crap on there.
Probably.
Because the other thing you have to take into account is, in Deadly Alliance and Deception, every character had 3 styles, 2 unarmed martial arts and a weapon style. Except for Noob Smoke, because they had the switch between Noob and Smoke mechanic, each character only had 1 style.
Yeah, it was Mitsu and it was Monkey.
Yeah. And then when they split them into 2 separate characters for Armageddon, in Armageddon everybody only has 2 styles, 1 unarmed and 1 with a weapon. Except Smoke. Noob Saibot kept Monkey and got the Troll Hammer.
Because, you know, noobs and trolls.
Right, and Smoke, instead of getting a weapon, got Judo, which makes him, I think, the only character in the game who doesn't have a weapon style.
I couldn't list them all offhand, but it's quite possible.
Because even, like, the sub-bosses, Goro, Kentaro, and Shiva all had those fucking claws on their fists as weapons. Motaro might not have had a weapon either.
Yeah. To be very fair about it, I think that they might have thought the idea of giving Smoke a weapon could have proved challenging. A lot of people, when they do concept art of Smoke and they have him wielding any kind of weapon whatsoever, it's usually like a kusarigama, a blade on the end of a chain, basically.
Well, that's because it evokes the behavior of the spear.
Yeah. It feels like a natural successor.
It would have him fighting somewhat similar to those stolen Scorpion moves, but also somewhat original.
People like to envision him using that because it's a natural step away from being a straight ripoff. It's something that he could have that's familiar but unique.
Yeah, now the thing is, in the 3D era, nobody had a weapon that behaved like a whip or anything wobbly. It was all swords, hammers, staves, axes, stiff things. So you weren't going to get a Kusarigama, just like Zombie Lou never got to fight with his chains.
Yeah. Damn shame.
But, I mean, if it were me, and I was trapped with, here are the assets and animations we already have recorded, you have to use these, I would have given him a trident, like a literal pole with 3 points on the end, and had it, use the staff fighting style, animation-wise. That's what I would have done.
I suppose it would have been an acceptable compromise. When I was a kid, I did a fan picture once of, what he would look like if he were freed from the Cyber Initiative, if he'd been deprogrammed and most of his mechanical parts stripped away, but still having some of it on him, and that's pretty much what I did. I gave him, some sort of cyber trident. It had circuitry on it. Good times. So, we know that they were going to make Smoke a solo character, because when Deception was first shown off, a lot of the beta footage, you could see the character select screen. And Smoke appears on that select screen in silhouette form, but it's still plainly identifiable as his nanotechnology model.
Nowadays, when they do the teasers of the unfinished select screen and there's all these silhouettes on it, they make sure you can't figure out who the silhouettes are. Like, sometimes they're deliberately not real characters. Like, this silhouette is clearly a Terminator endoskeleton. That's just a joke.
Yeah, they just fucking you now.
When they did it with Deception, the silhouettes were half lit. You were able to definitely tell who some of the characters are. You could see that, Noob Saibot and Smoke had separate squares of their own on that early beta select screen.
I remember looking at Smokes and thinking, oh man, there's a V pattern, that's definitely a ninja, the head's high, is this some kind of sword? They brought Reptile back and they made him a ninja again, holy shit. Yeah, I thought that was Reptile. That's what my thought process was at the time.
Kind of makes sense. I can see how you get there.
And there is something else. They got pretty far along with this before they decided to make Noob Smoke a single character. They got as far as Smoke having his own narrated ending as a solo character. It's cut material.
Yeah.
It's available up on the cutting room floor. I'll splice it in here so you can hear it.
Smoke had been reprogrammed to serve Noob Saibot, who had brought him to the Netherrealm. Noob believed that Smoke had no soul. Smoke still had a small amount of good left in him, however, which made his presence in Hell incapacitating. Smoke was immobilized by the input his sensors translated as pain. To protect Smoke from harm, his nanotech systems worked furiously to counter the evil forces that were unleashed upon his body. When they were finally brought into balance, Smoke became much more than a mere cyborg ninja.
After Noob Saibot gets Smoke, they go to the Netherrealm, and Smoke starts fucking glitching out. You can see this in Ashra's ending.
Yeah.
He's back there, and he's in his MKD cybernetic form, and he's, spacing out. So, to cope with the effects of the Netherrealm's influence upon him, his nanomachines reshape his entire form into the cyber demon form, the mist body form.
Right.
It's a small missing piece, the info for which we didn't really, I guess, need, considering everything else, but it does show us that, both of his costumes are canon.
Yeah. There's an aspect of Deception where there's sort of a putting together a puzzle that you have to do on your own in order to figure out, first of all, which endings are meant to be canon, and second, what order they happen in. And if you pay attention to all of the text and some of what people are wearing in the pictures and stuff like that, you can, in fact, assemble a timeline of events where the story of Deception suddenly makes a lot more sense.
Not 100%, but most of the way there, definitely.
Yeah. To go back a little, one of the things we haven't really talked about as far as, like, Smoke's Deception story is that it revealed a bunch of stuff about, like, how he works.
True.
So, Deception reveals that all of the cyber ninjas have nanotechnology in them, and it's primarily their version of an immune system. It repairs damage. So, like, if you puncture a whole bunch of holes in Sector's armor, and you've ever asked, how does he repair himself? The answer is his body does it automatically with nanites.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't just have oil leaking out of holes in him until he limps back to the Lin Kuei headquarters and somebody fucking forges him a new chest plate.
Doc Ratchet's got you covered up.
They actually can take a beating and heal like a person, even though they're made of metal, because of the nanites.
Smoke's story is the only one that actually makes extensive use of them, but we're not just shitting around when we say that this is probably where all the weapons come from.
The other thing is that for Smoke specifically, they talk about how when you become a cyber ninja, you lose your powers if you had any beforehand. Because in the Mortal Kombat universe, pretty much everybody's powers are tied to their soul. Like, that's the power source, your chi or whatever. That's why when Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn steal souls, they get more powerful and they learn more moves. It's because all the magic in the MK universe comes from souls. And as we know from MK3, when you're turned into a cyber ninja, you don't have a soul. Or more specifically, you still have one, but it's like suppressed and can't be detected or stolen.
I think it's about how much of it you're willing to give up.
Yeah. It's metaphorically connected to the loss of their humanity and free will, you know?
Yes.
So when Smoke was turned into a cyber ninja, his actual smoke powers were gone and had to be replaced or simulated with the cyber ninja technology. So when Cyber Smoke makes smoke clouds, he's not actually creating steam or whatever, he's releasing clouds of nanites at people.
I'd call this somewhat into question based on what we know of him from what MK9 gave us. But at the time, I'll totally assent that that's what was going on.
I think it still works because, like, and I'll get into this a little more when we get to 9, but the fact that when he's brought to the Netherrealm and the corrupting and evil energies that are just part of the Netherrealm atmosphere, and they've talked about this in other games. They mention it in Mythologies, and they mention it several times in Deception Conquest when Shujinko goes down there. It's like, the more time you spend in the Netherrealm, the more evil you become, because you actually, like, absorb the darkness of the realm. And so that energy starts corrupting Cyber Smoke when Noob brings him there. And it causes him to, like, malfunction and transform into, quote-unquote, a cyber demon. And then they reveal his actual origin story in 9 is that he was a demon anyway. It's almost like it retroactively makes more sense. Like, that could have been part of Deception all along.
It does.
I don't know if, like, John Vogel had this idea in his head when he was writing Deception, or if it just conveniently works retroactively. But it does.
That's so fucking cool.
If you look at different endings, like, if you look at Shujinko's ending, and there's the scene where he's about to fight Onaga and he absorbs power from everybody, and, like, Smoke is in the crowd back there, and Noob Saibot is too, I think. In that scene, Smoke is still Cyber Ninja body, like the purple one. And then you have Ashra's ending, where you see him being corrupted and transforming. In Noob Smoke's ending, Sub-Zero follows them to the Netherrealm, and they attack him and rip him in half. That ending is partially canon.
Sort of.
Most of it happened, except up to the point where they're going to rip him in half. Instead, Serena shows up and saves him. And you find that out in her Armageddon bio. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that is the explanation for the smoky body, is that now he's just a swarm of nanites, not like solidifying.
Okay, I'm looking at the Shujinko ending now, and Smoke's in his nanotech body back there.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. I tried to make sense of it for a while, and I assumed that, that Shujinko got a lot of people there at the right time to give him power, but I don't think everyone was, and I kind of think Noob and Smoke were off doing their own thing while everything else happened.
Well, so if Sub-Zero following them to the Netherrealm is canon, then he must have run into them at some point in time, right?
Maybe he sees them there. Maybe Noob Saibot goes, yeah, you know what? Onaga's a problem. We'll help you out. But then we're off gonna go do our own thing.
I mean, it's really just a question of, instead of like, oh, he saw him as Noob was retrieving Smoke from the treasure room, instead it's like, Noob retrieved Smoke from the treasure room much earlier, took him to the Netherrealm, and then came back to Outworld to, like, fight stuff.
Noob isn't even in the picture, it's just Smoke.
It's just Smoke?
Yeah, it's just Smoke. But he's already in the Cyber Demon form.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, the other thing is Nightwolf is in Shujinko's ending, and we know for a fact he can't be there.
Just assume Shujinko got some people there.
That picture is a metaphor. Like,
yeah.
Fucking mocap is in that picture. He doesn't need to have really been there.
How about this? Maybe if Smoke was there, it was in his cybernetic form. And maybe Sub-Zero saw him out of the corner of his eye and went, no fucking way, and started following him. This is why I tend to prefer not to place them at the Onaga events at all.
All we know for sure is that at some point in time, Sub-Zero saw Noob and or Smoke while he was in Outworld and followed them to the Netherrealm.
Indeed.
Because he's like, what the fuck? I thought you were dead. And then we have to assume that he either knows Noob Saibot is his brother by now, or he finds out in the process of that.
It says in the Noob Smoke ending that Noob has not seen Sub-Zero since before he became a Wraith. Shaolin Monks kind of implies that Sub-Zero thinks Noob Saibot's his brother already by that point, and 9 pretty much has them meeting during MK3. So, assuming that bit in Noob Smoke's ending where he hasn't seen Sub-Zero since forever is true, maybe Sub caught a glimpse of him at some point during MK2 or 3.
I don't think I haven't seen him since before I died really holds up, since Noob is in MK2, 3, and 4.
Sub-Zero should have questions about the shadowy guy who looks a lot like a member of his own clan.
Yeah, you'd think. Personally, if I was, trying to rewrite the games to make sense, I would have Kuai Liang figure out Noob is his brother during MK4, because Noob should have been in 4 a lot more than as just a hidden character, because he was the first guy we met who works for Shinnok.
There's already so much going on with Sub-Zero during 3 anyway, it's not the time to actually do it. I figured 4 is the right place too.
4 makes the most sense. As far as Smoke goes, so he spends the entire game under Noob's programming, and it raises the question of, has he ever been free, or has he been enslaved to his roboticness since MK3? And this is one of the reasons that Deception was so unsatisfying for people who'd been waiting so long for Smoke to come back, is it's like, it's been 10 years, and his story is the same as it was in 3, what the fuck?
Yeah, my reaction was essentially, so wait a minute. He found his missing friend, he helped him recover his humanity, get his soul back, they go off to fight Shao Kahn's minions together, and Smoke gets slapped around by a bunch of centaurs or extermination squad or whatnot, and he gets powered off? And that's it? He just has an off switch? Thanks, I fucking hate it.
So the thing of it is, if a cyborg is damaged enough, I would call that death. It's just that because he's a cyborg, he can be repaired and turned back on later.
I don't call that death. I call that being submerged, being unconscious. And why give him back his soul if you're just going to turn it off again, you know?
I think that's the question, because it's only stated in endings in MK3 that he actually did succeed in restoring his free will. So a lot of people will go from 3 to Deception and assume that he was never restored, that he was an evil robot in 3 the whole time until he was deactivated, and he's still an evil robot under control.
I don't like it.
I personally take the same tack that you do, to assume that the endings did come true, that Sub-Zero did save him, and then they fought against the extermination squads together at the end of the invasion, and then he was, let's call it, killed in battle, and then repaired later when Noob reactivated him. If it were me, I would have put Smoke in MK4, and I would have had it be human Smoke, and I would have said he's undead in that game. Because his body was deactivated, killed, fighting the extermination squads, his soul was released. So Human Smoke as like a ghost or an undead is a playable character in 4, is what I would have done. And then you keep everything else the same, and when you get to the Deception, and Noob Saibot brings his cyber body to the Netherrealm, his soul gets back in his body, and that kickstarts the transformation into the Nanosmoke. That's what I would have done. If I was, rewriting the MK universe so that everything's more satisfying.
I like it. I wouldn't have him be taken out during the MK3 battle in the first place.
It is kind of anticlimactic. Like, I saved you and then I watched you die 5 minutes later.
Oh, he's gone. No, I'd have him be like, listen, you've helped me. I'm incredibly grateful to you. I've got some shit that I need to sort out. I gotta go off and find myself.
Yeah.
I would probably have him maybe end up in the Netherrealm of his own accord, look back into his own heritage, and come to the Enenra conclusions himself.
Yeah, I mean, with the knowledge we have now after the fact of his backstory, that we're having this conversation after MK9 has been invented.
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense, like him going on an existential journey to figure himself out. It's like Cyrax's ending in 9 was basically that, and he ended up joining the Shaolin. And I've always hated that for Cyrax, because I don't think Cyrax makes sense as a meditative, believing in chi character. But for Smoke, something like that would fit.
The further on you get into the NRS period, the more stuff starts being swapped between Cyrax and Smoke.
It's really disappointing, because most of it doesn't work for Cyrax, specifically because he's not friends with Sub-Zero. He doesn't have a human connection with other characters. He's just a guy that exists. Like,
you know it, and I know it. That entire scene where, like, Sub-Zero is shaking Cyrax's hand, and it's like, I wish you well, my friend and brother. That was written for fucking Smoke. What happened? That's bullshit. I mean, this does go all the way back to Mortal Kombat 4.
Also, just personal note, I've always really liked Cyrax joining the Special Forces in the 3D era. I think that that's where he belongs, and it's weird that they keep doing different things than that. This, I can't live as a robot, I have to keep killing myself, Cyrax, that we have these days I don't think that makes anybody happy. I don't know why that exists. That doesn't... Who is that for?
If I was writing Smoke now, I think a guy who has lived his entire life as being essentially one of the few assassins in the Lin Kuei with, to coin a phrase, a heart of gold. Someone who's so good that if their soul goes to the Netherrealm, they start fighting against what's happening around them. Because A, good people can't be down there. And B, someone whose soul is strong enough to actually potentially recover from being forcibly converted into a robot. A person like that, discovering that part of their essence is and has always been from hell, from the Netherrealm.
Yeah.
The first thing I think someone like that would do is go right the fuck to the Shaolin or right to Raiden, if possible, and go, help me. I don't know what I am. I'm afraid of what I am. I'm afraid I'm evil. What do I do?
I just had a thought about why Smoke's story is theoretically so poignant, but in practice so disappointing. And it's because the core concept of the MK3 stage of it is the guy is going to overcome the programming. We're going to see how strong his will is. and it's going to be a triumph, right?
And it never was.
And then that doesn't happen, and instead he looks like the exact opposite, like he's weak-willed and he can't do it. That's not what we saw in Smoke. That's not what we want from him. Cyrax was the guy who couldn't recover his free will on his own. Smoke is the guy who, sheer force of will, resisted the programming and continued to be who he was on the inside. And that's what made him cool.
You know, you and I have had this conversation. Well, we just had this conversation quite a bit. We talked about the benefits of keeping him a robot in future retellings or keeping him a human in future retellings. Now, my perspective is I understand and I fully appreciate everything that turning him into a robot does for him. But that was always my problem. There was never any payoff for all the shit he goes through. He stays in the same place.
My position has always been that the only good reboot is one that does it over again, but more, as opposed to over again, but different. I think over again, but different ends up disappointing people because they don't see the versions of the characters that they fell in love with in the first place. It's like an imposter is wearing the story's skin. Whereas what you actually want is to see things improved. And an improvement doesn't delete, it adds. That's how I feel about reboots in general. Which is why my position has always been, if you're going to do it again, Smoke has to be a robot. It's because the alternative doesn't really go anywhere. And doing it the same goes somewhere, we just haven't seen where. And that's the part I want to get to. Honestly, I don't want a reboot. I want a sequel to the first thing.
Well, the way I've looked at it is this. Unlike you, I was a fan of the human first and foremost, and this goes all the way back to that. So, when it comes to what happens to him, where he winds up, the part that's missing, the part I want to get to, is him recovering his humanity. And while it's been effective to have him turn into a robot, to lose that humanity, I think you could also get the same effect by having him forcibly turned, or just having his real heritage revealed to him. In the original timeline, he gets a little bit of both, sort of. If he were to, say, die, if we went right to the noob Cybot, finds Smoke, dead or alive, and reawakens him as an Enenra, as this corrupted thing, is that still a thing that Sub-Zero could help his friend get through? And if the answer is yes, I wouldn't mind seeing it done that way. Smoke's story is ultimately about dehumanization.
Right.
And being forced into something that you're not really. So, why not do both? Because as far as I'm concerned, they both have the potential to go somewhere, to tell that story about someone losing and finding themselves. It's just a matter of execution. And right now, as far as I'm concerned, we have not one, but two stories that never went anywhere. The only difference is form, and they both could go somewhere.
With Smoke, I'm looking for something unique. We have had Revenants forced to do things against their will, and we've had demons struggling with am I good or am I evil in Serena and Ashra. And we've had robots fighting to get their body back or learning to accept now I'm just a robot. What we haven't had is both in the same character, and that's Deception Smoke as both a cyborg and a demon. And if Nano Smoke can literally control his shape changing and look like whatever he wants to, then that's a unique version of Smoke. And it's also the Smoke most uniquely suited to coping with his true nature. I think the most healed version of Smoke is what Nano Smoke would evolve into if he was free. Whereas I think you'd have something like that, but lesser, if he was just a robot and then got his body back, or just an Enenra and learned to cope. If he was both of those things, that's something that you can't do with Cyrax, and you can't do with a Revenant, and you can't do with Serena.
It's layers on layers.
That's my opinion. I think the best story is one where he ends up as Nano Smoke.
I suppose for me, it's a question of form and function.
Yeah, and again, it's assuming that you design a nano smoke that looks good.
Yeah.
Because that was the problem, again, with the original. The costume wasn't good. I think it's absolutely possible to design a nano smoke that looks good. It might just come down to making him look like human smoke, except his skin is made of nanites. Like, he's wearing fucking pants, but his arms are transparently cloudy instead of pink skin.
Hey, you know how you do that? You take Shaolin Monks smoke, you make his skin transparent,
Sure.
you make his eyes red,
Yeah.
you're fucking good.
That'll do it.
Seriously.
What does he call himself these days? Fezat on a DeviantArt, longtime MK fan artist. He has done a smoke design where it's basically human smoke, but his skin is gray and his eyes glow red.
Bitchin'.
Looked fucking rad. I think that's the ideal. That's where you gotta get to.
Gotta make our own Mortal Kombat, man. With hookers.
Blackjack.
And hookers.
Mine would have Serena in it, so the hookers are covered.
And miserable sluts. Sorry.
Miserable sluts.
So, at the end of Deception, we have Smoke descending into the Netherrealm with a noob Cybot. Whether or not they actually fight Ashra the way that it appears in her ending isn't clear.
Well, Noob isn't dead, so I'm gonna guess not, but
No.
Ashra did fight something because she did get free of the Netherrealm. It's all very confusing.
Maybe they fought, it was too even of a match, she got away before she could be ambushed by the nanomachine demon, and she was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just kill some mooks in my spare time, and then she went up.
It's kind of anticlimactic.
Little bit. But, that's why we're at the end of Deception, somewhere in the Netherrealm.
We were trying to figure out the order of events. So, in 3, Smoke gets deactivated and captured by Khan's forces. In Deception, Noob finds him in the treasure room, presumably because Noob is working for Shao Kahn at the time. Which is in itself a question, because 4 has happened. Maybe the Brotherhood is like waiting for another time when Shinnok will rise and attack, and they're like, well, in the meantime, you go back to your spy job.
Well, Noob's bio in Deception says that by the time he's found Smoke and whatnot, all his old masters are gone.
Yeah, because Shao Kahn's been defeated, and the Deadly Alliance has been defeated, and so Quan Chi is off the board.
No one knows where Shinnok is.
Yeah, Shinnok is just gone from the lore until Armageddon reveals, no, he's been in charge of the Netherrealm the whole time. He didn't go anywhere.
Just abandoned his throne, set up shop in a warehouse somewhere.
I don't fucking know. But yeah, so Noob is an Outworld. He finds Smoke's body, and for some reason he knows how to program a cyber ninja.
You know, if you want to go by some of the stuff that the later games, I think 11 did this, gave us, like...
11 does suggest that Bihan and Sector were friends, and, like, he may have been aware of the plan.
Picked up a few things here and there.
Yeah, it's, I'm okay with that, I guess.
Why not?
So anyway, Noob activates Smoke, takes him to the Netherrealm. Ashra may or may not have attacked, doesn't matter. Smoke turns into Nano Smoke. And then for some reason, they go back to Outworld to get involved in the Onaga fighting, which is how Sub-Zero finds out that Noob and Smoke are still around and follows them back to the Netherrealm, at which point they double-team him, but before they can rip him in half like in the ending, Serena saves Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero gets away, but Serena is captured and forced to give up what they call a magical device that will lead you to the Lin Kuei headquarters. But since the Lin Kuei headquarters that Sub-Zero's version in the 3D era stays at, the Temple of Delia, is at the North Pole, I think it was always just a regular fucking compass.
It's not hard, Bihan.
So, in Armageddon, that's why Noob and Smoke attack the Lin Kuei Temple, because they stole a fucking compass from Serena to find the place.
A small metallic object that would guide me and grant me access to the hidden Lin Kuei Temple. It's a fucking compass, that's all it is.
It's a fucking compass, it points north.
Oh, goodness gracious. So yeah, Serena saves his life. Before we get into the wherefores and what happened in Armageddon specifically, we'll take a small detour. Because we've got Shaolin Monks to briefly touch upon.
Right. Which chronologically, real-world-wise, came out after Deception.
Indeed. And Smoke's a really cool-ass motherfucker in this video game.
I think that's the best human Smoke costume in the series.
I agree.
And I don't think there's a contest.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's various shades of gray, just enough flesh tone to make it pop just a little bit.
Well, there's an interesting thing going on where it's basically like an MK2 Ninja outfit, but he has sleeves, black sleeves, and the colors on the V are inverted. It's black with gray trim instead of gray. And then he has these, like, swirly symbols. It's like an S, and then another S mirrored, so they're facing each other, with a dot in between, so it looks kind of like swirling smoke cloud.
Yeah.
He has that logo on the boots of his Nano Smoke outfit in Deception 2.
So he does.
So that's a nice little bit of continuation there. And then he also has kind of a Naruto forehead thing, except it's the shape of the trident, kind of. Like the symbol on his chest in Deception, it's on his forehead instead. I think that's a cool look. It kind of, again, makes me think of the Foot Clan.
I also like his shin pads. They kept the shin pads. The arm gauntlets kind of silvery.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of like, it almost looks like a dagger-style pattern engraved in black.
It almost looks more like something Ermac would have on him somewhere, or Scorpion maybe, but it works. Actually, I think it's fairly similar to the design Tanya always wears on her boots, like in 4.
Well, they didn't palette swap it from Ermac or anything. Ermac's got his own like set of shin guards and whatnot.
No, yeah. Ermac and Shaolin Monks had the MK2 shin guards, but they put kind of an eyeball design on the knee pads.
So anyway, it's a really fucking cool look. And we're in agreement here. Probably the best he's ever looked in terms of being a human being.
Yeah.
It's striking and it's stylish.
As far as how the game uses him, you never fight him or anything. He's basically like a hidden NPC that you can find in the Living Forest, of course, because where else would he be in a remake of MK2?
I mean, maybe the portal.
Perhaps.
But it does make the most sense for him to be hanging out here.
Right. So you find him in a secret area of the Living Forest, and when you find him, he'll give you missions that basically consist of, like, finding codes that are built into the background of various locations and things like that. Like, you bust some walls down in the combat tomb, and it will reveal arrows that point out, like, the code of a fatality and stuff like that.
That's the first one in the Soul Tombs.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Break down walls to find the hidden fatality. Second one is find the warrior shrine within the Wuxi Academy.
Yeah.
Third one's in the Soul Tombs again. You have to go to their torture room and perform sacrifices by throwing enemies into the fire and stuff like that. Fourth one's in the portal. You throw people into every single purple portal that's within the portal's stage.
Right.
And the last one is the Pit 2, which opens up once you've actually done all 4.
A portal in the same room that Smoke is in will open. This is the only place that the Pit 2 appears in Shaolin Monks. And you just go there, and it's like a marathon fight session, and once you kill everything...
It's just survive in the frozen peaks, and it's a nice little version of the Pit 2 where there's like a gentle snowfall going on, and just keep surviving the waves and waves of enemies. And your reward for beating all 5 of Smoke's quests is that Mortal Kombat 2 is unlocked for play in the main menu.
Yeah.
It is unfortunately the Midway Arcade Treasures version, which, ironically enough, had a bug, because they gave the entire interface in all those games in that compilation their own UI to pause, which means you can't fight Smoke because the pause prevents it.
Yeah, you can't actually do down and start if start pauses the game.
Yeah. Very unfortunate. So that's Smoke and Shaolin Monks. Still keeping up his reputation as a really secretive guy. I like the sound of his voice.
I think it was the same voice actor as Sub-Zero had in the 3D era, but he was doing more of a whisper thing.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
It fit.
It's pretty cool. I would have liked to have been able to, fight him or play as him, of course, but still. He's got his own little unique role to play, and that's pretty cool.
Indeed.
So back into Armageddon, then.
Yeah. So, Noob and Smoke were one of the rare few who actually have a story in Armageddon by virtue of the fact that they appear in the story mode, in the conquest mode.
They have no bios, but they do get to show up.
Yeah. And granted, like, Serena's bio basically gives them a bio. The bios that, like, 12 or whatever characters, 15, something like that, characters in Armageddon who actually got a bio, those bios are so long and mention other characters, so it's kind of two birds with one stone in a lot of cases.
I kind of do think that Vogel was like, there's no way I can write something unique for everyone. I'll mention as many people as I possibly can in the few that I can actually get out there.
So one thing I didn't mention before is, like, after Serena saves Kuai Liang and he gets away, but Serena is captured, Quan Chi was there, which is double weird because, first of all, he fucking died in Deception, and Armageddon never actually says how he comes back. It's established that demons just respawn in the Netherrealm when they die.
That's it. That's all that happened.
That happened to Serena at the end of Mythologies, and then when she comes back in the Game Boy version of Deadly Alliance, she just... when you kill a demon, they respawn somewhere else in the Netherrealm.
Can't kill what's already dead.
Yeah, so Quan Chi just came back, and despite having betrayed Shinnok and stolen his amulet at the end of 4, he's working for Shinnok again. And despite the fact that Noob was so happy to be free of his past masters, he's working for Quan Chi again.
I can only imagine his disappointment in finding out he was still around.
Yeah.
So Serena, once she teams up with Sub and beats Noob and Smoke, at the end of this fight, Sub-Zero's unconscious, and they, like, run off, and she's left with him.
Yeah.
And because of all the energy that she expends in this fight, reverts to her demonic appearance, Kuai Liang wakes up, goes, "Oh god, what is this?" and attacks her.
He's not familiar with her demon form, so he doesn't recognize her. And she's like, well, I don't want to fight him, so I'm just going to run away.
And she meets Noob and Smoke. And Quan Chi.
Gets captured and forced to give up the compass. There's some Quan Chi manipulations where he plays on her low self-esteem and convinces her that you're a fucking evil creature. You could never be with the humans. You don't belong in Earthrealm with Sub-Zero. You belong down here. And she kind of lets him gaslight her, believing it.
So he turns her, and then she's like, "You're right. This is what I am. Here, have this compass. It'll show you where they are."
And that's why Serena is fighting alongside Kia, Jitaka, and Quan Chi when Taven runs into them in the Red Dragon headquarters part of story mode. But yeah, as far as Noob and Smoke go, they took their compass, that magic item that will lead you to the Lin Kuei headquarters.
The mystical headquarter finder.
I guess their motivation for attacking the Lin Kuei is just that Noob is like, fuck my brother. Fuck his clan. I'm gonna show him.
Well, once you actually start getting into that part of it, you do get to see one of the Lin Kuei being converted into one of their cyber demons. So that's what Noob's after.
One of the things that we didn't mention about the story in Deception is that Noob, since he no longer answers to any of his old masters, they all seem to have died or disappeared, his plan is to take over the Netherrealm himself now. And when he discovers that Smoke is made of out-of-control nanites, he figures that he can create an army of cyber demons by infecting them Borg-style with Smoke's nanites.
And he's quite right.
But before he can form his army of cyber demons, Quan Chi comes back and sends him to attack the Lin Kuei. So instead, he's gonna make an army of cyber Lin Kuei.
It still suits his purposes, I guess.
Yeah, his plan is to, while he's attacking Sub-Zero's clan, he's going to convert them all with nano smoke, turn them all into cyber demons that way.
So they invade, things go back and forth, there's fighting in all the halls.
They just happen to have attacked at the same time that Taven was there, and so Taven kicks all their asses and saves Sub-Zero.
I think he actually beats up Noob Saibot at the end of it.
Yeah.
Smoke gets away after Taven fights him.
You fight Smoke, and then after you defeat him, there's a text box that says Smoke escapes, like just runs away, teleports out of the room and disappears. And then you go into the next room, and you find that Noob Saibot has already fought Kuai Liang and knocked him out, and then you fight Noob. And when you beat Noob and knock him out, Sub-Zero gets back up, and he's like, "Thank you for helping me defeat my brother. I'm going to keep him captured here and try to restore him to be Han, try to remind him of who he is. Because Kuai Liang at this time thinks that Noob Saibot is just some corruption and it's not, he would like to believe his brother is not inherently evil, but we all know that's bullshit.
He would have had a rude awakening, for sure.
Right. And obviously, by the time of the Pyramid Rising and the two armies fighting each other, Noob has gotten free and is on the side of the bad guys, so...
Do you see him in the intro? I don't remember actually seeing Noob Saibot in there.
I think he's in there somewhere. I don't really remember. I've never gone through that intro frame by frame and tried to pick out everybody in the background. Like, obviously, I know Li Mei. I remember her getting stabbed by Hotaru. I remember everybody who's in front of the camera,
There are people there you can only see for like 2 frames, like Sector.
Yeah.
He's barely visible.
Noob Saibot has to be there because we know everybody's there. We are told everybody is there.
For the purposes of what we're discussing now, it's very interesting because Smoke is on the side of the good guys when they're charging into the battle.
That's true. Yeah, after he ran away when Taven beat him, that's the first time he's been separated from Noob Saibot physically since being reactivated in Deception. So, presumably, off-screen, he wrestled against his programming and freed his mind again.
That is what I've always liked to think. Just like Sub-Zero trying to reawaken his brother and bring him back to himself, there's just all these little things that I'm sure would have been fleshed out in future games had we not rebooted.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting to see, if they'd done anything with it, assuming they hadn't murdered half of everyone in Armageddon.
I'm still bitter that Ed, in interviews, advertised Armageddon as it was going to tie up all the loose ends and resolve all the dangling plot threads.
They all die, that's a resolution.
That's not a resolution. That's choosing not to address all the plot threads.
I think at the time, the constant joke of nobody ever actually dies in Mortal Kombat was probably getting to him a little bit.
Well, he created that. That wasn't a problem until the late 3D era. People didn't start coming back to life like crazy until roughly Deception.
But that is it for Smoke.
Well, shall we talk about his arcade ending?
No, that is it for Smoke. No.
You don't want to talk about Planet Smoke?
Okay,
You don't want to talk about his chain of restaurants?
I was politely trying to sidestep the issue, but okay. So we've covered all these fucking endings for all these characters, and we say every single time we talk about an Armageddon ending, it comes with the asterisk, it comes with a footnote of all of these are just plainly poorly thought out bullshit because we know they knew none of this stuff was going to happen. They just sketched out whatever bizarre idea they had at the time.
Right. Armageddon endings, like modern NRS era endings, have nothing to do with anything. They also have the added bonus, unlike NRS era endings, of being complete fucking nonsense. Some of them seem to be jokes that, deliberately telling a joke. And some of them are I can't tell if they thought this was funny or if they were being serious, but it's really fucking stupid, so I'm gonna laugh.
May I do the honors?
Be my guest, sir.
Smoke's power lies in his nanobot technology. Microscopic machines course through his veins, constantly repairing and altering his being. But when infused with the power of Blaze, his nanobots took on a life of their own. Multiplying at an exponential rate, they were soon numerous enough to consume Edenia, transforming the entire realm into a mass of sentient gray material that calls itself Smoke.
Planet Smoke.
What the fuck? Smoke's ending is the example that comes to everyone's mind, I think, when talking about how utterly dumb all those Armageddon endings are.
I'm a pretty big fan of the Kentaro ending, where he turns Scorpion and Sub-Zero into Fire and Ice swords, and turns Hotaru and Havoc into Law and Chaos swords. And then he has 4 magic swords. What does that have to do with anything?
It's because he have 4 arms, because he's Shokan. Yeah.
Also, what does a Law or a chaos sword do?
When you stab someone with a law sword, they die because they broke the law. And when you stab someone with a chaos sword, who knows? Depends where you hit them. I don't know. Don't ask me what these fucking things are, man.
A sword on fire. I understand how that does more damage. I don't get how a chaos sword works.
Maybe when you try to slice someone with it, they take damage like they've been hit with concussive blasts or something. I don't know.
Maybe it causes the game to glitch.
Snake, the mission is a failure. Leave Chaos Realm now. Well, that's all we get from our boy in the original timeline.
He's effectively only in 3 games out of 7.
Damn shame.
He's in 4, because he's in MK2, but as an element of the story, he only really appears in MK3, Deception, and Armageddon.
It was more than enough to earn him a very devout fanbase.
I believe Shiva, Kintaro, and Motaro, other than them, that makes him the original Trilogy character with the least appearances.
I mean, Rain had Trilogy and Armageddon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And if you want to count Chameleon and Chameleon as characters, them too. I've always really wondered about what they think of Smoke as a character. I think that they've always approached him with trepidation, like I mentioned earlier.
Well, I know that when they think of him,
they don't know which form to use.
Yeah. There's conflict over should he be human or should he be cyborg, because there's half of a fan base for each form. So there's always that conflict, but I think the bigger problem is that they forget he exists most of the time. I think they just don't think of him.
Yeah, I don't think he's a character that comes to their mind very often. He's probably in the same kind of boat as Stryker is, honestly. I think there are reasons you don't see those two at all in 11. I've always thought that to them, he's kind of like the first one ninja too many.
Maybe.
And Ermac at least got the benefit of a really, really cool concept for them to be able to play around and work with, a being made of multiple souls, and Smoke presents to them more of a hindrance than something interesting. He's a prop for Sub-Zero, and Sub-Zero has, 6 props already.
So here's the thing, is I think that this problem would not exist if it was Tobias that stayed instead of Boone.
Yeah, I think that if Tobias had showed up, we'd be seeing a lot more of him.
Because Tobias looks at every character, he was the writer and the artist, so he, sees the story first. Whereas to Ed has a personal stake in Reptile was his idea, Noob Saibot was his idea, Ermac, the idea of taking that fan rumor and making it real was probably his idea. Smoke was probably a character he had the least input on. And that's why, to him, Smoke is just the most extra of the palette swaps.
Most likely, I'd say. Truly saddened to me.
Yeah.
I think Ed probably came into the idea, like you see in the Deception bio card, wanting to do like they did last time and put a couple of palette swaps in. But John was like, okay, here's this idea I've had for a character.
Yeah.
Ed was probably more behind Noob Saibot than anything else.
As I've mentioned on the show before, Reptile was, Tobias, he was kind of surprised by the addition of Reptile because Ed put him into the game all by himself. So when they got to MK2, Tobias was like, all right, let's make sure I know what's going on, because these characters have stories and stuff, so I want to have input on these hidden characters. And so he came up with Smoke and Jade.
Most likely.
And then he goes home and goes to bed, and Ed stays up late and makes Noob Saibot anyway.
What color do I make this? Black. That doesn't look really good against just bare skin. The whole thing is black. I know. It's a tribute to us. For we are evil, evil people, corrupting children with our evil, evil games.
So yeah, Tobias would come into work and be surprised to find yet another hidden character that Boone came up with by himself.
I wonder whose idea it was to actually have him constantly spouting off smoke.
I imagine, well...
Might have even been Steve Barron.
I don't think there's any way to guess that, because it's both an art idea and a programming idea, and it's certainly something that makes Smoke stand out from the other characters. It's unique to him.
It's one of the reasons I always found him really appealing.
Right. That's what we were saying before. Smoke has always had In every arcade game that he was in at the beginning of the series, he always had something unique about him that nobody else had that would, like, draw your eye or make him more interesting than the other ninjas.
I used to wonder, like, how it would look if he were in MK4. What the effects would have appeared like.
Well, MK4 did have blue steam coming off of Sub-Zero's arms in his alt costume.
That's true. Yeah, he could look great. Oh, man. Missed opportunities. So many of them.
Yeah.
So that is our first part of a 2-part Smoke retrospective. We're going into this one a little bit longer than we did with Jade because we clearly have a lot to say about this guy.
Yeah.
So skip on over whenever you feel ready to part 2 of our Smoke retrospective. Toasty.
See you later, nerds.